another, just what brought you to bioethics, and where you are now, briefly, right? What you're doing and maybe where in the world you are. So let's see. Why don't we get started with Sunny? I actually think, Sunny, you are our longest running alumni among the group here. So graduated in, was it 2022? No, 2023.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. Okay. All right. So tell us what brought you to bioethics and what you're up to right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So, hi everyone. My name is Sunny Jung. I was a full-time in-person 1 year Master of Science in Bioethics student and graduated in 2023. What initially got me interested in bioethics is that my professional background is in nursing, and so I started my career at the beginning of the pandemic. Um, during the beginning, the end, and still kind of ongoing, depending on day-to-day basis, I found myself in a lot of ethically and morally challenging situations and really want to learn how to explore and navigate those circumstances in the most professional way. And so I sought out to attend a Master of Science in Bioethics at HMS because I really want to be equipped with the right resources and kind of garner the right tools and skills to handle and navigate in the most appropriate way. And I'm really grateful and glad that I did. And it really truly kind of helped propel me to develop into the person that I am today. I am now moving forward. I'm going to be attending medical school in Australia starting January. So that's where I kind of am.
Fantastic. And a huge congratulations to you, Sunny. I think it's incredible that you're moving forward to medical school. And we'll have an opportunity to talk. But in the meantime, you were doing a pediatric ethics fellowship.
Yes.
And so we'll dig into that a little bit more, but really have been bringing ethics forward, I think, ever since the program in your training and in your contribution. So, all right, let's see. Let's turn over to Erin, our 2024 graduate. So Erin, right now you're in New York, but bouncing back and forth with Italy, right? So tell us what brought you to the program and what you're up to now.
Sure. First of all, thanks for having me and nice to see everyone. My background is a little bit different. I'm an engineer by training, specifically software engineer. So I come from the tech industry, and I started getting interested in the ethics of technology in particular around 2016. The incoming presidential administration was talking about implementing a registry for immigrants from countries with large populations of Muslims. And it was interesting to see, like, I was in the tech industry at the time, and I was seeing some companies were loudly proclaiming their opposition to any kind of registry and surveillance, while other tech companies were like stepping up to volunteer. And that really, I mean, I've always been interested in why technology gets created, and sort of, yeah, I guess the why behind it. But that experience sort of clarified the sort of moral valence of technology, I guess. And that kind of sparked my interest in ethics. And I was at a time in my career where I felt like I could take a step back and take a break and reevaluate. And so I decided to try to think about how I could lean in more into the study of ethics of technology and bioethics, even though it's sort of maybe initially rooted in medicine and biotechnology. I think it's, especially in recent years, expanded a lot. And I felt like within the Harvard program, there were opportunities to sort of widely branch out to different ethics disciplines, specifically different kinds of applied ethics. And that's sort of what brought me there. And at this point, I'm back to my roots. I'm working as a software engineer for a cybersecurity company, focusing on issues related still to data privacy and also user accessibility.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Erin. In particular, when we think about the explosion of artificial intelligence as a technology that has infiltrated perhaps every aspect of our lives at this point, and in particular is thought of to having a lot of promise for the healthcare space. We really need this field to be able to fold in people who are coming from areas that are not necessarily clearly the health sector, but who are going to intersect in really interesting ways with the possibilities that technology is opening up for all of us. So we were really excited to have you and to have something of a non-traditional background, I think, too, in the cohort. All right, let me turn it over to Ardita, who I think you are the furthest away. Well, maybe Sunny, you and Sunny might be competing right now, but Ardita, based out in Indonesia. So tell us about what brought you to the program and where you're at now.
Right. Thank you, Kelsey. Hi, everyone. Good night, good morning, and good evening, depends on where you are. So my name is Ardita. I'm a medical doctor in Indonesia. Initially, I joined the master's program because, if I may say, I sustained moral injuries. I felt like during my clinical practice, similar to Sunny's story, there's a lot of decision that personally I did not agree upon, but I still had to do it for the system. So I looked up into programs in healthcare, specifically graduate programs, that could give me some space to reflect on myself. Because initially, by that time, when I joined the program, I wanted to continue my clinical training, but I know if I continue my clinical training, I would be stuck in the same system. So that's why I chose the Master of Science in Bioethics, and in hopes to become a better human first before becoming a better doctor. But after the master's program, I was a completely changed person. Now I am teaching full-time in my university. It's in Indonesia. It's a public university. And I'm also a researcher in the Rare Genetics Disease Lab as a researcher slash patient advocate. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Ardita. Okay, so far we have backgrounds in nursing, in technology and engineering, and in medical practice. And so let me invite Palmer in with a little bit of a different lens. You came to us with something of a business side of experience, the business of medicine. So tell us what brought you to bioethics and where you're at now.
Thanks, Kelsey. Yes, a little bit. We have a lot of representations here, the different aspects of healthcare, which is really a cool part of the program. My background was in healthcare consulting, in kind of innovation strategy at the beginning. And the reason why I was interested in pursuing an ethics degree was a lot of the questions that I think are being asked now, and a lot of what kind of the leaders in the healthcare space are looking to change is how we're practicing healthcare. Aaron mentioned the tech that's being involved is a huge portion of I think the future of healthcare is in flux. And so those decisions that are being made today, I think, are incredibly important for where the future goes. And so I wanted to get an aspect of how do we build and make decisions that tomorrow, a healthier world for all of us, a safer world for all of us, and one that's more morally grounded. So came into the program. It was an amazing experience. Learned from a lot of different people, and like Aaron said, I got the opportunity to explore a lot of different aspects of ethics. And since graduating, I'm still in the consulting space, now working primarily on the insurance side, which is a heavy topic these days. But certainly also, again, a question of what changes we should make in order to make the healthcare sector work better for people. And I'm based in Boston, so I've stuck around and tried to stay connected to the program as much as possible, and that's been great, and I love it here. So
that's fantastic. And I will say that we have tried to source Palmer and Aaron, both of whom were potentially going to be around in the Boston area for a little longer, into the teaching roster of the program. So one of the things you'll see, and Ardita and Sunny, we're just kind of waiting for you to come back around. So one of the things, that we really emphasize in the master's program is that once individuals have this kind of specialized knowledge and skill in the field of bioethics, bringing them back in to serve as teachers and as mentors for the next generation and the next cohorts that are coming forward. So there's always, I think, opportunities to remain deeply connected with the Center for Bioethics at Harvard Medical School, even after having kind of graduated and moved on into different areas of life. So let's actually talk a little bit about how the program might have shaped the work that you're doing now, and if there's some things that you're kind of pulling forward from the program that have influenced the type of work that you're excited about at this point. I want to start with Ardita, because you shared with us, quite a significant career change, which is to say going from medical practice, kind of being a general practitioner and really focused on patient care, patient safety, to now making a big leap, I think, into the world of teaching and research. So could you tell us just a little bit about maybe why it is that you made that leap, and how the program has equipped you to be able to do that with your work?
Thank you so much for the question, Kelsey. So earlier that I said that I came to the program with the mindset of becoming a better person, but after I graduated from the program, it completely changed me, and I realized that healthcare is just not only one person. It takes a village, and it really does take a village. And during the program, I met with Palmer, I met with Aaron, and a lot of people from lawyers, from a finance background that I could never imagine I interact if I didn't come to Harvard and take the Master of Science in Bioethics program. So I realized during the program, there's a lot of aspects in healthcare that's only not from the clinical side. And that's what made me pivot my career. And I wanted to do something that is impactful to the system. And in the opportunity came along, the university that I obtained my MD, reached out and offered me teaching opportunities, and I took it because I understand that teaching means not only transferring the knowledge, but also change people's lives. And in medical school in Asia, they start early in 18. They come to medical school when they're 18. So I took the opportunity, and hopefully, yeah, everything works out.
And as Ardita and I were chatting prior to the panel this morning, afternoon, evening, it's evening for Ardita right now. She was mentioning, just in the course of thinking about bioethics education, really reaching back to the Center for Bioethics at Harvard Medical School to share knowledge about what it looks like to teach that, which is in itself a skill. So we're really excited to work with Ardita as she embarks upon this next phase of her career. And Ardita, I want to come back to you because we should talk a little bit about the research that you're doing. So put a pin in that. But I also wanted to kind of jump over to Sunny, because while Ardita, you're kind of leaving the direct practice element of medicine, Sunny, you are on the very beginning of a journey of getting into medical practice. Now, granted, it's from a nursing background, so it's not like you haven't been a clinician before. But I am kind of curious, what it is about the Master of Bioethics program, if it did play a really significant role in making this shift, or how it might have prepared you to be able to step into kind of a different clinical area of focus, and why it is that you've elected to pursue medicine now at this point.
Yes, absolutely. So yes, I did have a nursing background, and that really propelled me to pursue the Master of Science in Bioethics. But the Master of Science in Bioethics, as transforming it was for Adita, it was also incredibly transformative for me as well. I really thought at the end of obtaining my degree that I wanted to be a ethics consultant and healthcare ethics consultant. And so I sought out to do a pediatric ethics fellowship where I did part of my time was dedicated to do pediatric ethics related research, and then part of my time was dedicated to conduct healthcare ethics consultations. And I kind of got to see the best of both worlds while conducting research and also engaging with families, patients, and staff. It was another transformative experience where I really had to reflect on what was going to really drive me further throughout my life. And in the end, I did find myself a little bit more gravitating towards the clinician role. And I wanted to um, shift and pivot my career a little bit where I can take more a leadership role to help navigate and be the leader of interprofessional healthcare teams and set the mindset and set the environment of how we can be a little bit more mindful to conduct more ethically appropriate work, as also kind of encourage and foster and cultivate a more inclusive and open-minded environment. And so that was my intention of why I kind of wanted to pivot my career a little bit. But the MBE program, my fellowship, and all the subsequent experiences that had to do with bioethics was absolutely pivotal to kind of helping shape what I am and who I am today. Yeah.
So glad to hear that. And so interestingly, you know, we encounter students at so many different stages of their careers. Just to say, there are those who are coming right out of their undergraduate work and are looking ahead to maybe lots more schooling. Maybe they're going to go on to do a PhD or a nursing degree, or they're
Right.
do a medical degree. You were kind of unique because you already came in with this clinical background and yet
Absolutely.
nonetheless pursued more schooling afterwards.
Yes, I kind of went through a lot of different changes and different, all these experiences really shaped me and kind of shaped how I thought of things and who I want to become. And so it was definitely not like set in stone and anything was planned out. I kind of went with the flow of things and it led me to here.
That's fantastic. Okay, so I'm going to put you on deck, Sunny, to maybe not right now, but share a little bit about your capstone work also, because I know that it was something of a through line from, you know, your nursing work to thinking about pediatric ethics and then eventually bridging you into the next step. So let me put you on deck for that. But as I was mentioning, right, we've got a lot of people at different stages of their careers in this program, which I think makes for just the most incredible back and forth with people learning from individuals who have already made a lot of career decisions when you're in the younger cohort. And then if you're a little bit more mature in your career, kind of looking back and remembering, oh, wait, there was, you know, some kind of like bud of passion that I'm going to try to recapture, right, around the nature of the work that I'm doing. So I'm not saying that that's you, Erin. I don't mean to imply it, but you were one of the folks who, when you came in, had quite a span of work, kind of in your history. And so, you know, I'm curious. You said in a way that after the program, you returned to your roots in the sense that you're in cybersecurity in your current role. So, what I'm curious about is how you see the program if it didn't really like shift the nature of the career or push you in a completely different direction, how you see the program as having colored the work that you're doing now, or what, you know, ideas or experiences you're carrying forward with you in light of the work you're doing now.
Yeah, and I also just want to highlight the fact that Harvard does attract people from all different stages of their career. That was a big selling point for me with the program. I, you know, was when I was researching where I wanted to do a bioethics program, that was one of the things that I think set Harvard apart, was that there was an opportunity to be in class with colleagues from like literally from the beginning of their careers till like pretty late in their careers. So that was really, I think, worthwhile and enriching. And then as far as how the program affected me professionally, I would, instead of using sort of a transformative type of vocabulary for it, I feel like it was more of a refining or a honing. Before I entered the program, I sort of was thinking about these problems of technology and ethics and why we build the things we build and how we make those decisions about what to actually put out into the world. And what I was hoping to gain from the program, and which I feel like I did gain, or I'm at least further along on that path, is an ability to sort of think through thoroughly the questions that sort of present us as we build things and as we produce new technology. And what I mean, I'm going to spoil this for everyone. You don't study ethics to find the right answer. It wouldn't be a discipline if that was what you were trying to do. But what I think I gained from the program and has been helpful so far, and I think will continue to be helpful, is an ability and sort of the experience to build a rigorous argument for or against a certain decision, and that helps for ethics problems, but it also helps, you know, anytime you're making decisions that can have consequences for people outside of whatever the immediate thing you're doing. Being able to know how to do the research, how to build an argument, how to see a dilemma from different ethical angles. That's sort of the training that you get in this program. And I've found it very useful as I think about the types of projects that I'm involved with at work, how to make those arguments in a clear, straightforward, and well-defined way. And I think that was really what I was hoping to get and what I did get out of the program.
One of the things that I actually think it's sometimes framed as a soft skill, or, you know, as if it's in the background of the more, you know, specialized work that we're all doing. But it is truly, I think, a foundation and a major skill set that the individuals who come through the program may not have even known they were seeking, and yet exit the program with, at least in my experience. And this is from the experience of evaluating student work in the program and really seeing the growth and being able to develop arguments that take account of a multiplicity of perspectives and a plurality of commitments, and kind of crystallize that into a voice and a perspective on an issue. It's really incredible to see the growth that occurs over the course of the 1 or 2 years that students are in the program, and to imagine the ways that that finds its way into the world through the work that they're doing afterwards. So thank you for highlighting that, Erin. I really appreciate it.
Can I just add one thing to it really quickly?
Yes, please do.
The other thing I wanted to say is that even though there are no right answers, there are echoes of patterns that you can start to identify in sort of problems or ethical issues that come up. And I think another really useful thing that I got out of the program was a sort of survey or lay of the land of what sort of ethical frameworks have been proposed so far. And that also has been really useful when I'm thinking through problems, or when someone presents something to me, if I can think about, oh, this sort of feels like, you know, some particular ethical framework, whether it be consequentialism, whatever it may be. And then I can think about, oh, what are the pitfalls of this? What are the different sort of problem areas that I need to be aware of, or at least thinking of? And so yeah, I think the research aspect, but then also the sort of survey of bioethics and ethical decision making in the field were both the sort of 2 big things that I took away.
Thank you so much, Erin. I'm curious, Palmer, do you have the same experience? Do you feel like it's kind of infiltrated the way that you think about problems and make decisions? And let me actually step back and ask a broader question, which is to say, you know, given that you're involved in healthcare consulting and thinking about the industry and the business of medicine and strategy, you know, this is a little bit of a different lens than I think some of the roots of bioethics have been, which really has grown up out of the clinical and the research side of health and healthcare. So, you know, I'm kind of curious about how, you know, what, if you could give an example of something that you've taken from the program that is relevant to your work, or even the way that your work has given you a lens on bioethics. So tell us about that.
Absolutely. How much time do we have?
Oh my gosh, talk for the rest of the meeting.
I think so to take the more specific, the first example, or the first question, definitely agree with what Erin had said about just the way that you approach problems. I think one thing I'll highlight out of that is the ability to listen, or the capacity for listening. I think not that I was horrible at it beforehand, but certainly got much better at being able to take in other people's ideas and process them and think about them, and then either, you know, agree, disagree, make edits, what have you. But I think this program, because of the diversity and because of some of the ways in which the program is organized, really teaches that skill of listening, which is important no matter what you do in personal and in career. But I think on a broader scale, it is an interesting lens to approach bioethics from. Is like most people don't look at I think the business side, and as you mentioned, it didn't start there. But from a business perspective, companies and organizations, and I think our society as a whole, is starting to realize the ethical implications of medicine as it has expanded over the years. And so, like, health equity has been a huge conversation. There's a changing demographic population in the US, but also globally. As we become more globalized, people are receiving care from those who look different than them, experience life very differently, grew up differently. And so there's questions around, you know, how are we changing healthcare to fit people's best needs, and improving outcomes there. And so there's a lot of ethics questions built into that, as like what type of care, what is our end goal? Is it just, you know, is it treating the acute issue and sending them on? Is it holistic? What responsibilities does a clinician have versus an insurance company versus, you know, the government? And so I think that's a big area in which kind of ethics and business align. Then I think on business going into ethics, I think there's a question of kind of an incentive or structure that I think business can help give like a lens to, in terms of, okay, we want to provide better hire, clinicians want to do a better job, people are burnt out, et cetera, they want to do better. Okay, well, what strategies do we have to create a system that does that? What levers do we have to pull? What laws do we have to change? What regulations or policies can a hospital put in place to allow that to happen? And I think that comes from, that's the kind of the business strategy, the long-term mapping of different plans and creating roadmaps and doing things that give you the vision of, okay, that's the end goal we want. This is how we can do it. These are the levers that we can pull to achieve it. So definitely more overlap than actually I thought coming into the program. I was a little nervous about that, and again, it was really exciting to be able to learn from other people, and it's certainly improved my work. So
That's fantastic. And I love that perspective, which is this kind of back and forth between the individual in the system, right? And then the nature of the system and what kind of levers and strategies are available to help create an environment in which individuals who may have come in with moral injury, right? Or who might have come in wondering, how can I be more of a leader in this space? To allow individuals to actually reach to become their best selves rather than constantly fighting against the structures that surround them. So I think it's a beautiful connection that folks are able to make by virtue of connecting with one another in the program and then going forward to work at those different levels. Let's talk about research and about Capstone, and about some of the really fun ethics questions that have kept you up at night and that you've been able to do work on by virtue of having been in the program. So I want to actually start, I think, with Capstone, because that's among the things that is most special about the Master of Science in Bioethics program at Harvard Medical School, in the sense that it's this year-long opportunity to really dive into an area of learning or practice or scholarship around a bioethics question that animates your interests under the mentorship of someone affiliated with the center, or even who's not affiliated with the center but has specialty experience or practice in a particular area. So each one of you did a capstone. I want to start with Palmer, because I recall that your capstone had quite a bit to do actually with clinical ethics, but from a kind of bird's eye view perspective. So I wonder if you could just say a word about what your capstone was and how it dovetails, if at all, with some of the work that that you continue to do and think about.
absolutely. So my capstone project, working under Dr. John Marin, who also teaches the clinical ethics portion of the course, as well as a pediatrics ethics course, I believe. He something that I learned through the program is that there is no kind of national or international, any sort of standards that are set for clinical ethics teams at hospitals that are responding to the ethics challenges that a hospital may face. And there's conversations around what rules we should put in place, if there should be regulations. And so we wanted to figure out what is the current state of clinical ethics at Harvard affiliated hospitals and see how different are they even within kind of a similar or associated system. So my capstone was involved in researching what questions have been asked, and survey data, and then coming up with our own sort of analysis and developing that throughout the course of the year. Project is still also ongoing, so a lot of these capstones are still in motion. And if anyone wants to help out in future years, if they join the program, I'm sure there'll still be more work to do in that space. But it was a great experience learning again from someone, as Kelsey mentioned, who's advanced in their field and knows, and you can learn from and guide. And I'm still very close with Dr. Marin. He's reviewing an AI ethics chapter, a publication that I'm working on, and that's another aspect too, is that even in my career, had the option to write blog posts and connect with other individuals and edit their work, and so connected even still on sort of an academic and publication side. So yeah, it was a phenomenal experience.
I'm so glad to hear that. And I would suggest that the nature of the work that you did in your capstone, kind of developing a survey to assess the differences in clinical ethics practices within a system, is probably something that Ardita wants to talk to you about, because as I understand it, Ardita, some of your research is very much looking at what's going on in the ethics work, right, in some of the various healthcare delivery systems in Indonesia. I wonder, Ardita, let me kind of open it up to you. Do you want to say a little bit more about your current research and how the MBE set you up for that? Or do you want to talk about Capstone? Why don't we, I'll leave it to you. Choose one or the other because we're probably running out of time.
Okay, well, like you, Kelsey, so my capstone and my current research is still connected. So I am now working at a rare genetic disease lab. Well, before that, when I went to the program, I remember early before you get the orientation, you already have to know at least a bit of what you want to do. And why my capstone was working on the genomic data sharing policy in Indonesia, because right now in Southeast Asia, specifically in my country, we're just moving, we're just starting to get into precision medicine. But when I read about the policies, we do not have policies such as, or guidelines such as the GINA, Genetic Non-Discrimination Act. So there's a risk of people's genetic information could be used for employers or health insurance. And when I realized about that gap, I came to the program with that research gap, and I have been so lucky to have Ingrid Holm. She's a professor of pediatrics in Harvard Medical School, and she has a lot of experience with research projects involving genetic data. So that's kind of what set me up to my job right now, working at the Rare Genetic Disease Lab and continuing to advocate for the use of genomic data fairly. How do we balance between autonomy and justice and keep the research still beneficial for the vulnerable population, just not only for the beneficial of the industry, for example. So yeah, it's been such fun. And the same as Palmer, I'm still connected with Dr. Holm. And actually just a few months ago, she has been so nice to be my guest lecturer in my university. So even after graduating from the program, it still feels like family, and it still feels like I'm there, even though I'm 12 hours ahead now.
Ardita, I'm so glad to hear that it seems like the capstone has been just deeply relevant, not only to the nature of the work that you were interested in coming into the program, but that was very much a launch pad for the kind of work that you're doing now. I think that is in many ways a capstone that that really feels integrated into one's journey in bioethics. You know, I will also say that there are a lot of folks who do capstones that don't necessarily become the emphasis of their work going forward, and yet nonetheless, those capstones might be really constructive for the field and for the students' own thinking. You know, I'm curious, Erin, if you want to tell us a little bit about the capstone that you did looking at polygenic embryo screening, and what you felt you were able to add to the field by virtue of that work, and if there are some things that you're holding on to from it now that you're in an area focusing more on a different aspect of technology.
Sure, yeah. So my project was looking into this specific sort of cutting edge biotechnology called polygenic embryo screening, which is a type of screening that can be done in concert with IVF, in vitro fertilization. And it kind of combines biotechnology with also big data analysis, because you're doing essentially like a big data analysis genetic screening. And the center of my capstone was investigating the presence or the possible presence of cognitive biases as a result of this type of data analysis that could subconsciously influence prospective parents to choose one embryo over another embryo. And I got involved with this capstone sort of just by chance. My academic advisor, so you have an academic advisor and a capstone advisor, and my academic advisor happened to have a postdoc in his lab who was working on a number of different projects. He is a social psychologist, and he does a lot of experimental research in psychology. And he proposed this idea to me. And I felt like it was interesting because I think it has the technology side of it, but it also brings some of my own background in the sort of data and engineering type of work. And I had a great capstone experience. It was really interesting to dive deep on this particular topic, and I read a lot of literature on it. I mean, it's a very new technology, so the literature is very much still being generated right now, including by us. Like the capstone for me, we're still working on it. In fact, we didn't actually get the results of the experiment until after I had graduated from the program. And so then we did the analysis together after the program was over. And at this point, we're collaborating on a paper that we're hoping to get out sometime next year. So that's something that's definitely ongoing and I'm really enjoying. It's been a very fruitful collaboration, and we've both been able to bring our own backgrounds from psychology and sort of bioethics, and from me with software engineering and technology. But it's something I look forward to, and it's still a big part of my work.
That's amazing. It's in a sense the best of bioethics when you have folks coming with really different disciplinary backgrounds and experience, and then finding the ways that those things come together to actually produce new learning and new knowledge for the field. And you mentioned cognitive biases, which I think is an area that we really think about carefully in the program. How framing different types of information can actually influence the nature of the choices that are being made. And these are really significant choices, right, that influence people's life horizons and their prospects. And so what are the ethics of these things that seem kind of irrelevant, right, which is how you present options? And how do you really get into some of these hidden pieces of careful ethical decision making? So I'm really thrilled that you're going to bring that work out into the world through a publication, and I look forward to reading it. Why don't we turn to Sunny? And I know it's now quite some time since you were really thinking about your capstone, but that it nonetheless connected to a broader area of interest in pediatric ethics. So could you say just a little bit about your capstone, and if you anticipate pushing it forward in any way, kind of as you're not the first few years of medical school, I assume, but
Right.
kind of thinking about the longer term and horizons of your career?
I'm actually working on it right now still. But to tell you guys a little bit about my capstone experience, I also had such a phenomenal experience from the beginning. I was paired with a fantastic mentor, Dr. Elaine Meyer, and she was really great in supporting and encouraged me throughout and even to this day. So my big key interest when entering the program was about understanding the pediatric informed consent and assent process. And with that, and being paired with Dr. Meyer, she helped me collaborate with a working group that she was already involved with, and it's called the Pediatric Anesthesia Informed Consent Group. And I was connected with that group to kind of understand about how currently various institutions are conducting pediatric anesthesia informed consent. And throughout my capstone experience, I created a resource tool that prompted parents and children to ask questions to to enhance their understanding about what they're going to be experiencing. Because often within the field of pediatric anesthesia, that informed consent can occur 20 minutes before surgery or be kind of an afterthought because the surgery tends to be more of the prominent component in people's heads. And so I really still wanted to elevate this informed consent process. And so while creating this resource tool, I was able to pilot test it into my next institution after the program doing my fellowship. And I collected the data and have been analyzing it now, and we're currently collaborating to write up the manuscript at the moment.
Fantastic, Sunny. One of the things that I love to hear is that for each of you, your capstone work has continued beyond the bounds of the program. And not only that, but also the relationships that you've had with your capstone mentors continue to be really significant in your lives. And I think that that's one thing which we might not spend a ton of time talking about because it's already bubbled up in so many answers, is the nature of the mentorship that the program tries to foster, both through your relationship with a faculty advisor, thinking about the nature of your journey in the program, what classes you're taking, are you on the right track? And then also the capstone mentorship, where you're really honing your interests and work around a particular topic of personal interest. So both of those things, I think, are probably among the strongest reasons why the program has been transformative and really impactful for the work that's going on once you graduate. I know that we're running out of time and we probably want to get to some general information about the program and also invite any questions from folks who are listening today. But I really do want to thank all of you from my perspective, because I get to see all of you as students in the program, right? And so we're very narrowly focused on how well are we understanding, Kantian deontology and its relevance for the work of bioethics. But being able to then zoom back out and say, how do I bring some of this work forward in a way that actually speaks to the world and speaks to my own interests? I think that's actually some of the hardest work that people do, and they start to do it during the program, right, when they're bringing ideas forward into their own capstone work. But it really takes place kind of after the program as well, when you re-enter the real world and ask, how does this classroom learning translate into impactful work for myself and for the world? And I think that each one of you have demonstrated the ways in which that learning has been either personally transformative or refining and honing in a way that's allowing you to contribute to the field of bioethics, but then also build careers and paths for yourselves. So I thank each one of you for sharing that with us today. And I will turn it over to Jesse.